I see him. He seems like he's having a great time. He's like, yeah, no, I'm relatable.
I'm relatable.
Hashtag relatable Mark.
Dude, relatable Mark. Welcome to the Cat and Cloud podcast. Jared and I here today
Two effing OGs, am I right?
at the admin table. It's a full house. Wednesday's the day that most of our teams have their meetings, including our team. We just got out of our meeting, so
We had a great time.
It is packed.
Tell you what, it was a great time.
It is beyond packed.
I hear, Chris, gosh, I hear we have some questions that were posed to us on the internet.
Yeah, I got some questions from Instagram from
It's a
these
social media
thoughtful
site.
people
for all
out
you who
there
don't know it.
in the world, and I'm pulling them up right now. All right, let's see. I wonder. Give me 30 seconds here.
It's okay, man. I'm just admiring Dulce's stickers on her water bottle while we do this right now.
We're gonna scroll through these.
Yeah,
so
dude.
let me know if there's any of these that
You would love
jump out
to
at
learn.
you.
Everybody would love to learn.
Everybody
Me too,
wants
dude.
to talk about that.
I don't know what's left. I mean, we could honestly riff on a few of these, right?
Yeah. I just didn't know if any of them.
I saw a lot of those questions when you posted them on the internet briefly. Sans the 90s Hondas, I won't really know much
90s
about that.
Hondas, baby. 90s
Why does
Hondas.
gatekeeping information especially exists if many of us have similar goals?
I don't know if gatekeeping information exists anymore.
Dude, but I can say that people still try to put out like non-competes in specialty coffee. Like you get
Really?
a job with us and you still don't. Yeah, like I think, and yeah, I'm not going to name the names of the companies, but I've heard specifically like some companies trying to put in a non-compete. Like if you work for us, you can't work in specialty coffee. And it's just like, who the fuck are you?
Really?
Yeah, which is very funny. Or a like-minded shop like ours, that was like a very old school mentality that I had a couple of bosses back in the day who were trying to like get people to sign that stuff and be like, if you go to another specialty coffee shop after this one,
Is it
You're in big
is
trouble.
it a non-disclosure? It's like
No,
you can
literally
work
a
there, but you
non-compete.
can't even work in the industry anymore
I mean, it was like a concept of like, yeah, you can't work for like another company that does what we do.
for X amount of years.
I don't know about how many years, but yeah, isn't that odd? Anyway,
That's cool.
if you do that, you're kind of not a good company, I think, just in case you're wondering. Whoever you are. Not the best thing ever. Yeah, I mean, an NDA is one thing. Like, you can't share how we do things. But
Right.
it's not like, I mean, dude, even then, what is somebody in specialty coffee doing that's so freaking special that you can't share? We didn't even trademark the 1-in-1, guys. It's gonna be okay. We didn't even try to get anything from it. So I think it's gonna be okay if you share how you run your business.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this one's hard to get into.
We don't have to. That's
No,
fine.
it's fine. I'm
I don't
just
even
like,
have anything. That's all I have to say about it. I said gatekeeping. I'm like, well,
We'll just cut that whole question's dead. That whole question's is done.
just ask one of them.
All right. So here's a question: moments where your core values had to make a shift in order to continue growth.
It's a great concept.
So the idea of core values shifting in order to do something kind of runs counter to the reason you would have core values
Big time.
in and of themselves, right?
1,000%.
Something like a mission, which is, you can think of as a guiding light or a purpose or a reason for being.
Yeah.
And then values are a set of, I don't know, rules is maybe a strange word, but it's a guiding
Behaviors,
principles.
guardrails, yeah.
It's like we've talked about it like this. Just as every individual person has their own values that they use to maneuver through their life, businesses have a set of values that they use to maneuver through their life as a business. And the whole
Correcto.
point about values is, everything's easy when things are easy.
Yeah.
You really need values when things are hard.
Yeah,
So when you're
absolutely.
figuring out what's next or you're faced with a challenging situation, you have to go through it. You want to do it in a way that makes you feel good and is true to who you are. That's where you use your values. So
Every time.
I think the question is not how to change your values in order to continue growth, but how to grow while maintaining your values.
Yeah, I mean, experientially, I've seen the only time the values shift in order to grow is when you find out that you actually have written down values that do not reflect honesty and authenticity to who you are as a company. So I have been with places and or helped people who have given a list of their values before and be like, these are our values. And then, through conversation, through trying to figure out like what are the things that you do day in and day out that back those values, you kind of figure out they're not terribly accurate. So that's one way you might look at this if you were saying, how do you shift them in order to grow? But the antithesis or the counter to that is really more what we've gone through, which is evolving the values to be more clear. And that's something we've done before, but that actually haven't changed. If anything, they've become easier to understand and live out day in and day out. They haven't changed at all. And occasionally we've had like two values that kind of we can basically are so similar that we found a better way to articulate them into one.
Right. So the word changed, but the core
honesty,
idea of what it is has not changed. We're just better at articulating what was in our hearts when we started. We couldn't articulate as clearly what we were thinking.
Yeah, our vocab.
That's not an evolution of values. In
No,
a sense
not
of
at
like,
all.
oh, we used to value this, but now we value that. It's just how can we say the same thing in a more clear way?
Yeah. And that's a great way to check yourself, though, is can you continue to grow and make decisions as you go through all the hard things you're talking about? Like what are hard things, and how do we make sure that we make decisions that reflect our values so that people can understand at all levels of the company why the decision was made?
And I think what you're saying is just totally, it's so important to think about, right?
Yes.
There aren't any good values or bad values. There's only true values and untrue values.
That's why there's a hardware store called True Value.
If they're true to you, great. Like there's no boilerplate set of values that you need to have. And I think that's a pressure that a lot of people feel like, how do I make these values quote unquote cool or resonate with popular culture? And it's like the whole point of values is they're above those things. They're above trends. They're above fads. They come from your heart. They come from your soul, or however you want to put it. Mm-hmm. They're intrinsic to you. And that's awesome. That like they're a filtering point, right?
Yes.
It's like, and they create some sort of polarization, because one of the fears is like, what if I create these values and then people don't resonate with them? And the answer is great. That's awesome. That's exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. Some people won't. Mm-hmm. And that's a good litmus test for who you want to bring into your organization as team members, who's going to be the guests in your organization. Not everything is for everybody.
No,
that's just
leadership
not a thing.
development. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's also feedback. It's discipline, if you will. It's helping people to all be on the same page. It's something we struggle. I mean, it's a big reason this company exists, honestly, is to make sure we could create a place where not only ourselves as owners, but the team, the leaders, every single thing we could speak to and have hey, we all kind of signed up for this. This is how we roll. This is what we talk about doing. This is why we do it. And this is what you're going to be held accountable to. And that also is important to note when you're creating these things. They're authentic. Yes, they are. They're an accumulation of the owners, right? The people who founded the company, all of the personal values that overlap into what they believe in, right? So like personal values, they obviously align, but it's not like every single specific Jared or specific Chris or specific Charles value is perfectly articulated individually in our company. It's where we all overlap into our beliefs as to what this company should be.
Right.
So
like,
like
picture this Venn diagram of
perfect,
me, you, Charles.
Right.
Like there's a lot of ways in which we're different and believe different things, and there's a lot of ways in which we believe similar things.
Yes.
And those overlapping values essentially become the foundation for what Cat and Cloud's values are going to be.
Right. Yeah. And I think that to me has been something I think it's been helpful for other maybe business owners and leaders when they're trying to articulate what their values are. Is it's like, if you say something as an owner that your company is or does, whatever that value may be, but you can't see yourself actively like engaging and or having some sort of either some sort of actionable that like backs up that belief or that value across the board, then it maybe isn't a value, it's an aspiration. And that's something that's really important, that has been sometimes a really challenging conversation to have. And I've had a lot of them in the past where it's just like, no, that's not you. I don't see you or anybody in your company doing this, acting this way. I don't see it articulated in any way in your company, with the exception of it's written here and you have this saying. So it's really important that you can find actionable concepts that people can say like, oh, I can see that and I can grab it, or I can identify it in some way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be real. And then you can always build upon that as your company grows. Because again, you're going to learn. It's so key. They cannot just be aspirational and make you look cool. You can go Google so many amazing companies right now and then walk into them and be like, where can I see that? And if you cannot, it's not that necessarily they're a bad company. It just might not be an authentic value, or their leadership isn't showing anybody how to live out that value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
not been passed down.
No,
in a way.
I mean, I have seen it. What was one of? Nah, it might be too close to the chest for somebody if I talked about specific values I've heard. They might be like, I know who you're talking about, not like that. But I mean, that's why I mentioned it at the beginning, is the reason we continue to articulate more clearly what our value was. I mean, what's a good example of one of ours? We had, or maybe a better way, we didn't have anything in our value system that reflected quality of coffee and being a barista when we started the company. We kind of just assumed, because Chris and I had been in barista competitions and like been champions, that people were going to automatically assume that being an amazing barista in our company was important. And we thought that our next portion of evolution would be to really lean into the hospitality side and the guest experience side and the experience for our team. And so we focused so much on that and our mission that people actually at the time, and we had courtesy, I think it was, and we had our mission at the time was leave people happier than you found them. And so as we continued on, people in our company rightfully leaned into everything we asked them to lean into, and none of it specifically said, with the exception of teaching people how to make coffee, like, we want you to really care about our product on a deep, deep level. And that was our fault. And we were like, why is this so weirdly hard? We care about it so much. We talk about it all the time. Why aren't our baristas and concierges, nerding out and geeking out on this as much as we'd expect? And then we realized, there's nothing in our value system and nothing, with the exception of some of the specific operations, that says this is the behavior that's important to us.
Right.
So we needed to
100%.
clarify. So we changed it, and we put artistry, and we put hospitality and artistry in our value system, and they're specific.
Yeah. Hospitality wasn't there in the beginning either. That was kind of where courtesy was holding the place for hospitality. And again, that's not a shift. Hospitality is just such a better word for what we're trying to do than courtesy, because courtesy you could see as just simply being nice to someone.
Right.
And there's a difference between simply being nice to someone and giving them amazing service.
Right.
Being nice is part of giving amazing service, but just because you're nice doesn't mean you're giving awesome service.
Yeah.
So that clarification was a pretty big shift in our company as well. And that's what I would encourage people to look inside. What are the things that you really resonate with personally? Like, what is if you have a business, like, starting a business is a complete pain in the ass. If you look at it from a checklist point of view, you got to do so many things that you don't want to do in order to do something that you do want to do.
Yeah.
If we wanted to bring a certain version of hospitality and a certain take on coffee to people in our area, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go down to the city and talk to the developers. I don't want to pull permits. I don't want to deal with I don't want to put in a grease trap. I don't want to all these things that you don't want to do. It's
so tedious.
All I'm saying is just it's kind of a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah.
To start a business. So why do you really want to do it? Really, really want to do it.
Right.
Why? And how can you articulate that as clearly as possible? Write those things down. Talk to them. Talk to your friends about them. You know, and then over time, you might find, like we said before, better ways to articulate them. That's all part of the journey. But I think if you do enough soul searching, you'll know. You just have to be brave enough to be honest with yourself. About what that is.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even as good as going not the other way per se, but it's like, if you can't identify specifically what you do want, you could definitely start making a major list of what you don't want.
Sure.
And then you can start flipping the script and be like, okay, well, this is all I don't want to happen in my cafe or company or whatever. If I don't want all that, what does the other side of that look like, and start going that way? I mean, that's where, the other value that ended up being part of artistry, right, was accuracy, right? And we thought, okay, well, if you say accuracy, that means as a barista, you're gonna be really precise, and you're gonna know all the recipes, and you're gonna really understand the flow. But what ended up happening with that, again, just to go into why we went to artistry, is it became operational. Everybody actually just looked at metrics of success in terms of drinks per minute. Am I hitting recipe perfect?
Right.
They didn't necessarily think accuracy meant understanding a story around the coffee and how it related to our guests so simply as you might think. And that was our work to do. And some of it's evolution. Some of it's being better at leading and teaching and, creating everything that happens. You're going to go through imperfections on the way. But again, what we found out was some of these things were not telling and giving the clear picture of what we meant. And that's really the truth of what you, as you figure out your values, what did I mean? And it's really normal for you to say your best version of what you meant and to go through living it out and being like, you know what, that's not a fully clear picture. I would just encourage anybody to continuously look at the picture of your business or whatever it is, anything really, any part of your business. Is it doing what I want it to do? I mean, and I'll give you an example even now where it's like, something that I wanted to work on with our roastery that they're totally on board with. It just might not happen yet. And I was tasting espresso because it's fun to do, make an espresso on the machine. And it's like the clarity of our espresso and the flavors that I think you and I and the coffee nerds of the world would love the most they mostly will happen from like 2 weeks age to like a month. They just are. With like lighter roasted coffee, sometimes that's just like where everything settles into like a balance and it's really delicious. And more often than not, our espresso is like in our cafes and like through into the next order, 10 days, 12 days tops. And I'm like, this is just what I'm thinking. So this is just a fun thing, but how much more might our team be engaged if we could find a way to have our espresso, specifically just the ones that are going to come in the buckets eventually, delivered to the cafes so that they're getting that window where everything's the most clear, the most delicious in our recipe. Because all that means is that they're able to taste everything better. You know, like you and I could probably taste it throughout the whole course of things because of our time and tenure and understanding of coffee, but some people might not. And when they're able to come in and be like, holy shit, this is so good, and I'm having a pretty easy time dialing it in.
Yeah.
Your engagement level, something as simple as that, your engagement level with the team from the beginning can go up, I believe, a shit ton. So it's like, I know this is a slight deviation, but if you're thinking about the concept of artistry and people being able to deliver like the most hospitable and exciting, memorable experience, something as large and small as saying, hey, how can I, and we put together a system so that just the coffee that's going into the hoppers gets there at this time so that it tastes the best this way. That whole concept waterfalls or snowballs into what could be just like a huge cultural connection point that goes all the way to the guests and potentially into people buying more Best Friends Blend coffee, you know, something to that effect. So that's how I end up looking at a lot of these things, and you do too, is it's how could something that's seemingly so simple make a potentially huge impact, and how would that maybe or maybe not fit into your value system?
Ran it right there.
Yeah, anyway.
You fucking ran it.
Anyway, good talk.
You ran that thing.
It's just a fresh thought right now because it makes a difference to me, and I like drinking coffee, guys.
This is awesome.
It's also this, I made a post about people dark roasted coffees and selling more coffee yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, nothing crazy. It's just like, I mean, I don't know. You can riff on that or not, but that can be a different podcast altogether.
No,
unless you have a great question in front of you.
Well, let's just talk about dark roasted coffee for a second since you opened the door.
Like, what was
just
my
give
thing?
me a synopsis of
the synopsis was
sum this thing up because I'm probably not
we
too
want
far.
Specialty coffee to grow, and in order for specialty coffee to grow, we need to sell more coffee. And so when you look at the metrics, oftentimes 90% of the time, the more developed and darker roasted coffees are the ones that sell. It doesn't mean that we don't love to roast the coffee to express its most varietal and terroir characteristics. They might be my favorite, but the farmer partners that we have would never say that we are doing any sort of disservice or anything to their coffee by way of roasting it darker or lighter. What they want is for us to love their product, to bring their story to the world, and to sell their product so that they can make a living. And they at home drink the worst and the darkest versions of their own product and sell us all the best. So it's not that they don't care about the product. What they care about is the connection and us taking their product, being proud of it, and selling it. So that's like your general, so we need to be good at both. We need to be good at craft roasting dark roasted coffee and craft roasting light roasted coffee to the best of our ability ever, knowing that as long as we can sell the coffee, selling more of it is the best thing we could do. That's like the long-winded sum up.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that it's hardly a hot take because that's what everybody does. Most people just don't want to talk about it. I'm not saying everybody roasts coffee well, but
any business that's in success has to do it.
If you talk to any roaster of some scale, these are not necessarily boutiques, but even a lot of boutiques would be included in here too.
Right.
70+% of their menu or 70+% of their sales are going to be their flagship blends, their espresso roasted coffees, their dark roasted coffees. There's a small percentage of the coffees that they have on offer that make up the most of their sales. I mean, it's 80-20 all over the place. You know,
you just
these are
go
Pareto
look at the
principles.
metrics. Yeah.
It's time and time again.
Every time.
Do you think there's still a stigma against that? Do you think people are...
Well, I mean,
I don't hear about it as much lately.
You don't hear about it as much lately, but then you get... So here's the problem, though. Influencer culture makes it feel that way. So that's why I'm talking about it. Like, if you listen to people, they often talk, you know, in the barista comps and things like that, they're just like, they're sharing in a way where this is the way, and then the feedback from like the up and coming younger, they're passionate. I get it. It's like smart to be passionate about coffee and to get into like whatever it might be. Like if you serve, so one person was doing their hot takes, like if you serve a blended drink, you're not specialty. If you do this, you're not specialty. And
it's
fine. Yeah, but and that part doesn't, it's not that that doesn't even bother me. The problem is just like, it's not actually helpful for somebody who's going to try to run a business.
We had this whole conversation yesterday, Mark and I, because I wrote something that was kind of in the similar vein, which was essentially, my hot take was, you know, we came from a reductionist era of third wave coffee.
Yeah.
And the golden era of third wave was no blenders.
Right.
No syrups.
Yeah.
No modifiers.
Yeah.
No espresso to go.
Small size.
Small size. Some people took it even further. No condiment bars. No cream. No sugar. All of these things.
No decaf even.
The third wave was as much defined by what it wasn't as what it was.
Totally.
Right? So now it's interesting to look at specialty coffee, whereas the quality of the coffee has gotten better every year, almost, you know, I think in lockstep every year we have access to better coffees. There's people roasting better coffees. There are more places to get a properly prepared espresso or a reasonable cappuccino, good texture latte art than ever before.
Baseline's up.
But the cafes that most of those things are being served in, they look more like second wave shops than third wave shops, in that blenders, sure, no problem. There's no cultural penalty for those. We got a slushy machine that we're working on, right?
Baby.
Food. Most places have all these food offerings, whereas in the golden era of third wave is like, no, you can't do good food and good coffee. Anything that's not coffee is just taking away from the coffee.
Yeah.
Why would you have food?
Yeah, focus.
You know? So instead of the old school Italian sodas that we used to have, now we have these seasonal signature beverages like espresso tonics that are citrus infused. We've got our matcha lemonade. Verve's got a whole matcha menu.
Yeah.
Like 9 drinks with a matcha 1-in-1 on it.
Dude, they nice, dude.
The culture's cracked wide open.
Yeah.
Because what people are realizing is, oh, I actually have to have some sort of a sustainable business.
Yeah.
Right? And part of having a sustainable business means dancing with the culture that's around us. And the culture that's around us wants more than simply the old school traditional Italian espresso menu, which I love. I love that menu. Those are the things I drink. I'm not ordering the matcha lemonade.
Yeah.
So a couple things of note for that. Like, I totally understand how a barista competitor or a purist would not love those things because, hey, I've been there, I've been you. I get it. Like,
totally.
You want
still you in a lot of ways.
Right.
Straight up.
It's like, what I want is really interesting single origin espressos, these like really dynamic flavor experiences. Like that is the juice. But I can't build a business on only serving that, at least not in the US, not in the markets that we're in. So we need to have an open-minded approach to what we're doing. And we've talked about this over and over in training. When we started Cat and Cloud, we were coming out of this example, like where I worked at Ritual and you were at Verve, and then I was at Verve for a little bit. Both of those shops, no blenders. Blenders were a sin. So we're coming from this place where blenders were, you know, forbidden. And we're having this conversation of, do we have blenders or not? And the way we approach it was, look, someone who wants a blended drink is going to get it somewhere.
They're going to get it.
If you don't have it, they're going to go down the street and buy it from someone else.
Are you good enough to make a good one?
So you might as well make the best version of that you possibly can.
Right.
The best version of that exists, because our blended drink is going to be better than the blended drink at Starbucks.
Right.
It's going to be
we're
better
actually good at this product
than the whatever shop across the corner. We can make the best version of that. We can delight that person. We can bring them into our culture. They get to experience all of the good things that come with interacting with a culture like ours. And then there's two paths. So maybe they end up being a hardcore coffee nerd and espresso geek in several years,
which we have,
which has happened to us. And maybe they don't, and that's fine as well.
Right.
But
because then they come to us anyway.
Right. There's no shame in those things.
Right.
So while I get that people have their preferences,
and they very much should and could,
there's a big difference between espresso nerd culture and what it takes to operate a business.
Right.
They're different things.
Well, and then it's the same concept, right? Like, look at the big picture. And is the big picture to support more of our farmer partners or not? And for me, that's a big part of it. So again, that's why I was like, if I could sell 200 more bags of dark roasted Santa Barbara Mountain relationship coffee because people would buy it, I would happily roast the shit out of it.
Well, I think the big picture depends.
And I'd roast it well, though, too. Don't get me wrong. That's the other part. It wouldn't just be like throw it in and be like, I don't care because it's a dark roast. I'd be like, we're going to make the best version of this to still have some stuff, too.
And this comes down to what we were talking about earlier. What do you really value and what do you want to do?
Right.
You know, because for some people, maybe that's not their end goal.
Totally.
Maybe their end goal is to have this really hyper boutique experience with only hyper lights, limited menu, you know, no seating. And that works some places. That can work some places, but there are limitations that come with those things.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard to have a business of scale with those things, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But it's hard to claim both of those things at once. So, I mean...
Well, and or providing us potentially, too, which is like, to be clear, I do want to create one of those things, but it won't work in the way that we run a business and who we need to support.
You can't be only that thing.
Yeah, unless we get big enough so that we can decide to do some of these unique experiences without it making or breaking our ability to pay the bills, really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is actually a way for me to find, personally, a means to an end to try to express some of this stuff in another way that it doesn't make sense for us right now.
And you could do that. And if you made the choice, you could do that right now. And it would make your life completely different.
It would be...
You would be working mostly by yourself. You'd be in the shop every day, A to Z. You'd have a lot less flexibility. 2 or 3 team members. You'd make a lot less money.
Yeah.
And that's not good or bad.
No.
All I'm saying is like people can pick their path, but acting like there's one right path is just not correct. And acting like the same thing, we all don't need to do the same things. And what we choose to do, we don't need to feel bad about. Like, we don't need to feel bad that we got a slushy machine that's about to go in Swift. Like, I'm psyched for this. This is going to improve our experience.
Right.
It's not detracting from anything. Because we put that slushy machine on the counter doesn't mean that our espresso quality gets worse. It doesn't mean that we're sourcing worse coffees. None of those things are true.
No.
And that's where we're at this really interesting place where the coffee's better than ever, but the experience is completely different than what we thought it was going to be in that third wave heyday of just coffee only. Everything else is just coffee's suffering.
Right. Well, and I think that's what part of why I put that video out, or the little reel, is that I think about people who start businesses, right? And it's like they may start wanting to be purists and so on and so forth, and then they can't sustain it for a long period, right?
Sure.
I think about even... He actually wouldn't mind me saying that. Like Alex Mars, right? He started and has closed Papa's Donuts.
Papa's.
Some of the best donuts ever, truly. But
I missed you when you're in town, Alex.
Well, I got to have a great conversation with him, right? But it's like after 3-ish years, he closed it down, and he went through the process. He killed it. 2.5 years ish in this one spot, and then he was working out of another place doing like his what's the word for the not conservatory, this
commissary?
Commissary, that's the way. Yep. He had a commissary at this spot inside, and he's like, oh cool, I'm going to move and actually do a brick and mortar. But when he moved to that brick and mortar where he was already tired 2.5 years in, he moved away from all of his clientele and almost had to start completely over in some regard. And it's like, if you're burned out and tired, this is not even a knock on him. This is more like what might happen to you as a business owner. How long can you as a business owner sustain if you're doing all light, all this, all that? You're 10 10 to 15 hour days and like getting like 100 people and not being able to pay the bills. Like, how long can you sit on that and like feel good about your life? And it's like, you might love it, but like, what if you're just stressed? Like, there's a trade-off. And that's where I was like, what if you, by the numbers, found a way to increase your sales by 50 to 80% because you did this one thing and still be able to do that other thing that you love and provide your means to an end and have some success. And that's kind of where like the heart of that concept was, twofold, like sell more specialty coffee, but also earn more trust so that you can potentially do those things that you believe in and want to do. It's, you still have to earn trust and earn the right to like do what we did with Reezy. Turn him from the, 5 ounces of coffee, 12 ounces of milk to the, I bought an espresso machine guy. It doesn't happen by way of forcing the light roasted coffee down their face. It comes from finding a way in. So that, it's like, it's multiple fold and multiple faceted. Nothing wrong with either or, but I do believe that you will as a human being potentially find yourself really, really tired if you're just grinding nonstop forever. Maybe not.
I mean, I don't know.
I think there are.
I think there's a way to do it where it's not a grind. I mean,
it's possible.
Again, I don't want to talk about Alex's situation because I don't know it particularly,
totally.
But Alex is super talented. He's super smart.
Killing it at the markets, yeah.
Right? So his donuts are undeniably good. He's a super fun guy to be around.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of the things that would make a good business owner, or someone who could bring a compelling product to market. So my thought is kind of similar to yours, which is maybe where he was, there was just no market for what he was trying to bring. But if there is a market for what you're doing, I think of the coffee movement in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. They're pretty close to an old school third wave shop. There's no seating inside, pretty limited menu.
They do have specialty coffee drinks though.
Okay, that's fair.
They do have a couple of those, like, unique flavors.
They got some really high dollar single origin espresso
for sure,
on
super
tap.
Good. Yep, flights.
Their business model is completely different than ours. Completely different. They're in San Francisco, super dense population, a lot of
they're busy
people wanting to dabble in those specialty fringe things. There's some things that you can get away with in a highly urban populated environment that you just can't get away with.
Oh, for sure.
Like small town
1000%.
USA or even here.
Yeah.
We're closer to a small town than we are big city.
No,
by
for sure.
far.
And I noticed that in New York as well. You can go find yourself some busy places that are very specific.
Yeah.
And that's super cool.
So maybe there are things that work for you, but I mean, again, just I think it's when you're listening to the, like you said, influencers or coffee geeks talking, of course, they're not talking about the blends or the flagship blend. And I'm not either, If
Totally.
I'm going to buy coffee from Onyx or if I'm going to buy coffee from us, I'm not going to buy the normal espresso blend. I'm probably going to buy the wildest single origin they have to offer because for me, that's what I'm looking for. But I'm a consumer at that point. I'm not running a business at that point. I'm dabbling as a hobbyist.
Absolutely.
So, I think those are all really interesting. Those are all really interesting takes.
They're all takes.
Yeah, I love talking about that stuff. And I think as a business owner, even though you might feel some of this pressure to lean into what these influencers or loud voices are saying, those people don't matter because those people don't support your business. Maybe they influence the culture somewhat. So there is, some small expectation of overlap where people come in and they watch so-and-so's videos and they want something like this.
Sure.
But 80% of your clientele are not those people. They're not aware of those things that are going on.
Yeah, they live down the street.
Yeah, they live down the street.
Yeah.
They want whatever drink they've been drinking for years. They want the best version of that. They want to know that you care. They want to know that you put in the effort and energy.
Right.
They want to be treated well. They want a clean space. They want all of these things.
Right.
And the coffee geekery is just like the tiniest percentage. And if you happen to have barista competitors on staff, or if you play a bigger role in the industry, cool. That's something that they can be proud of as your guests.
Right.
But it's not making or breaking it. There's a ton of businesses out there that are doing really well that don't have any of those things.
Yeah. Then again, if I guess we're going to circle back to the beginning of this interview, that's where you need to look at where you are, who you are, and put together the most authentic values and experience that makes the people around you and the people who are going to potentially visit you go, this is where I want to be. Right. And that is your job as a business owner and a leader, is be authentic to who you are and find that intersection between what you believe and what the people want. And whatever that little vertice is, and like whatever that window of space is, find as many ways to be as loud as possible there, and basically fuck the rest.
Neat.
That sounded like a podcast.
Is that an episode?
It's a great episode. In your face, America. Thank you.
Hey everyone, that's the podcast for the week. Thanks so much for listening. If you heard something that inspired you, or if you heard something that gave you more questions than answers, send us an email to podcast@catandcloud.com. And if you're looking to know more about us, then head to our website at catandcloud.com, where you can find everything we have to offer. A great place to start would be The Answer, our house coffee that's right for any occasion. Or the Best Friends Blend, a coffee that tastes just as good as the good it does by donating $1 per pound back to our partnering producers. Also, if you're feeling extra friendly, connect with us in the usual places, like YouTube, Instagram, pretty much everywhere that's hip. All right, that's it. Thanks for being awesome, everyone, and we'll be back next week.